Okay, so I finally kind of I kind of figured out what I want to do, and for his, I guess I should really start out by saying, I have been thinking and talking in past videos about trying to figure out what I want to do for history videos and whatnot because got talking about that in the stream and whatnot, and I do like to do this stuff. I do enjoy like learning stuff, and I figured why not start out with the worst year ever, which is 536. Oops, wrong one. This one. There we go. 536 AD, and I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. For me, I'm gonna turn actually my volume down on my headphones a little bit. But I like I didn't find out about this until probably like senior year. I kind of learned a little bit about this. And so I don't know if a lot of people know about this. I'm sure there are some people that know about this, but there was a lot that actually happened in this year. And as you can, there's 11-minute video, and this is broken up into sections, as you can see down here. And we'll watch it. I'm gonna go ahead and play it here real quick. But I thought, why not start with again the quote unquote worst year to be alive in human history. Human history is the big thing. Because obviously, like, there's meteors that hit the earth. There's great dyings and whatever in the past, but human history.
Worst year ever gets tossed around a lot these days, mostly on the internet, and for reasons like I was disappointed in the latest Star Wars movie. But scientists and historians have actually argued that no year in the long history of this planet was worse than the year 536. While sure, there have been plenty of worthy contenders for the worst year ever over the course of history, no single year has had more of a measurably bad impact for the decades that followed. Today, we're going to explain why the year 536 was the worst year to be alive. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. Oh, and leave a comment too.
There we go. All right, here we go.
While serving as a military advisor to Belisarius, one of the Byzantine Empire's most distinguished generals, Byzantine historian Procopius noticed some trouble was brewing in the air while traveling with his boss in Sicily in the year 536. He wrote of a sun that gave forth light without brightness, during like the moon, during this whole year, and it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse. For the beams it shed were not clear, nor such as it is accustomed to shed. Translated, it was all dark outside, like all the time. He, of course, wasn't the only one to notice the sun appeared to be in a mood during 536. Michael the Syrian, a Byzantine scribe, would later write of this period, "The sun became dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, and still this light was only a feeble shadow. Everyone declared that this sun would never recover its full light. The fruits did not ripen, and the wine tasted like sour grapes." This wishy-washy sun situation cast a non-metaphorical dark cloud over the globe that darkened the sky for at least a full year in 536. Researchers later discovered evidence of a massive volcanic eruption, whose ash was likely a major contributor to the Seattle-like weather, minus all the rain, spreading ash and destruction on a global scale. Not to mention, it made the grapes sour and the wine bad. So that's an easy strike for the year 536.
With darkness came widespread famine.
Basic biology teaches us that plants need the sun to aid in their growth and survival. So not having direct sunlight for the duration of at least a year did a real number on the crop output around the world and sparked a widespread famine around the globe. And it's not just that the plants wanted to catch their rays, it was just too darn chilly for crops to grow. With the sun cloaked in an endless cloud, the temperature of the earth dropped between 1.6 and 2.5 degrees Celsius, or 34.88 to 36.5 degrees Fahrenheit.
It dropped 35 degrees basically in that. Oh my god. Maybe they'll talk about it in this video. I don't remember where the volcano was that erupted in the world. It was probably like Europe or Asia, but I don't remember where it covered the world, and it dropped 35 degrees Fahrenheit, or between 1.6 and 2.5 Celsius. Imagine that.
Fahrenheit for all the Americans thinking that doesn't sound so bad. But it also cooled temperatures for decades to come. Crop scarcities were reported far and wide around this time period, including Ireland, who suffered through their own horrible-sounding food depletion they called bread failure.
Oh, I was going to say, is it the potato famine? I do have a video on that, though.
A dusty veil covering the sun wasn't the only bad thing in the air for these poor people just trying to live their lives in 536. There was also a plague or two waiting in the wings to strike on these vitamin D deprived immune systems. Nobody was
World
immune
wants
to
you
this
dead, and the
infestation.
diseases
It
want you
swept through
dead.
the lower classes all the way to the imperial palace. Symptoms, as it was lovingly described, began with a sore that formed on the palm of the hand and progressed until the afflicted one could not take a step. The legs swelled, then the buboes burst and pus came out. Obviously, if
Ugh.
this same plague were to infect the world today, there would probably be a TV show called Dr. Bubos, Pussbuster, and with it, a new contender for the worst year to be alive. With the
Ugh.
plague beginning to make the rounds in Constantinople, the city began to stink, what with the piles of dead, sick bodies just sort of being tossed around into the sea only to resurface later. There wasn't a lot of burial planning going around back then.
Bring out your dead!
It was more of a wing it vibe around the Justinian plague. Emperor Justinian ordered the bodies to be removed from the city,
I'm not dead!
I'm not
He said he's
dead.
not dead. Yes, he is. I'm not.
but all that
Yes, he
did was
is.
expose more people to the disease, as healthy people were responsible for moving deceased sickly bodies out of the cities. Things weren't all bad for Emperor Justinian, though, as the plague that took all of these lives and made the city a smelly nightmare would later be named the Plague of Justinian, so that was probably nice for him. Less so for the estimated
plague him
50
in.
million people that died from it, however.
Okay, 50 million in that time is obviously like a way bigger deal. But obviously it's not. Was it the Black Plague? It's obviously not that. Which I forget what was it 45% of the entire world population? I forget how much the Black Plague actually took out from the world. But so it's not that bad. But 50 million back then is like a lot of people.
Around 536, the climate in China started its
Obviously,
journey
Black
into
Plague,
madness,
you know, a little
doing perfectly normal things like raining dust you could scoop into your hands. Not only should it not rain dust, it certainly shouldn't be measurable by the scoopful. The Nan-Shi, a 6th century chronicle, reported a yellow ash-like substance falling from the sky. They named their freak weather Hui, or dust, and said it was yellow in color. Whether this was volcanic ash or just some random, unexplained climate reaction is not known. However, this was just the beginning of China's climate disruption.
That's gotta
The
be.
chronicles of the
right?
southern dynasties reported on a rare summer-winter weather event with frost in the midsummer and snow in August. Like a Southern California girl in Chicago in January, the crops were not here for this cold snap. Summer crops were destroyed, and the city of Xinzhou, along with others, were thrown into a deadly famine that lasted for 2 years and resulted in the deaths of around 70 to 80% of the population.
Holy crap! Yeah.
Researchers discovered evidence
Amazing.
deep in the ice sheets of Iceland and Greenland that indicated a major volcanic event occurred around
Oh.
536. Volcanic eruptions in Iceland in 540 and
Such tragic
547
numbers.
thrust people into the literal dark ages, with ash lining the skies and blocking out the shiny hot sun thing in the sky that the people of the
So-
6th century were starting to get used to having around. Based on a tropical volcanic ash later discovered, some scholars have suggested a volcano in El Salvador went blasting off around the year 535 or 536. Still others pointed to a volcanic eruption in North America
Yeah,
as a
for that.
contributor to the dark skies around the world. When combined with the 2 Icelandic volcano eruptions, it kicked
Okay,
off
so
what
it's-
was adorably
that was
called the
Iceland.
late antique Little Ice Age. This cute little ice age cooled off the planet for at least a decade and resulted in the death of crops and subsequently people. Both directly through starvation and indirectly, a malnourished population was more susceptible to diseases, of which there were plenty running around. Well, there's one thing that certainly couldn't claim it had a bad year: exploding volcanoes.
I gotta do a video on Pompeii too. We'll talk about that.
By the
There's a lot of
time the
videos to
6th
that.
century rolled around, the Roman Empire had migrated east to Constantinople. And, under the guiding hand of Emperor Justinian, the Romans sought to get back to the glory days of the empire. Much like a high school graduate who still hangs around campus and wears their Letterman jacket. I mean, it is pretty cool. Though some of Justinian's generals saw success in this cool goal, most notable Belisarius, who fought against several different armies, including Goths, Vandals, and others, Justinian himself couldn't mirror the success due to constant uprisings and imperial instability. Those pesky uprisings always getting in the way of success. To add sickness to war defeats, the Byzantine Empire would never fully recover from the disease and famine sparked by the events of 536. The Byzantine Empire lost between 35 to 55% of their population in the year 541, once the bubonic plague moved in and did what the plague did best: kill depressingly high percentages of entire populations. Historians believe the plague could have been transported by plague-infested rats hitching a ride on military trains during this attempt to bring the Roman Empire back to its peak, which clearly backfired.
Yep.
The horribleness of 536
Worst-
didn't
I don't know what
discriminate.
that is.
The Moche civilization of Peru wouldn't count 536 as their banner year either. The Moche civilization, a once dominant force in the region, were known to be avid fishermen and developers of an advanced irrigation system that allowed a variety of crops to grow. Their agricultural talents were the backbone of their economy, but the weather conditions in the 6th century caused their pocketbooks to take a deep hit. It was around this time that an unusually strong El Niño weather system caused waters to warm, which decimated the fish supply. The freak weather system also caused heavy flooding, which ruined their irrigation systems and devastated their ability to grow enough food to feed their people.
Analyzed
People,
DNA.
probably tired of listening to Twitter
What's
users
up with
claim
2020?
X was the worst year ever, a group of scholars set out to set the record straight once and for all. Harvard
Hey,
historian
whoa,
Michael
someone
McCormick
said
and a group
2016
of scholars
was the worst
decided to
year?
science
Nah.
their way out of the age-old question, what was the worst year to be alive? Initially, however, this was not the ultimate goal of McCormick and his group of 12 interdisciplinary scholars. The group came together to study metal usage, coinage, and changes to the 7th century monetary systems. Somewhere in this thrilling subject matter, one probably began to ponder if they were living in the worst year to be alive. Their findings included an analysis of volcanic fragments from an Icelandic volcano in ice core samples from Swiss glaciers that, yes, dated back to 536, confirming the volcanic event that thrusted a good portion of the northern hemisphere into unprecedented darkness, setting off a global catastrophe. Yeah, but in 1998, both Armageddon and Deep Impact were released, and people had to choose between which two asteroid-based action movies they liked best. It's a tough year. The planet left behind plenty of evidence of climate trauma that resulted in a chain of climate events that spiraled over into real human suffering. Remember, we only get one Earth, everyone. Please recycle. Dendrochronologists, people who study tree rings to determine a tree's age, since that's a science and not a wild guess, noticed some disturbing patterns emerging when examining Icelandic trees. The rings indicated a period when the tree's growth had slowed, suggesting a significant cooldown had occurred around the middle of the 6th century. This, combined with the newly unearthed ice core evidence discovered in 2018, helped date the time of the catastrophic event that ruined Earth for a little bit, to the year 536.
I learned in college, and I don't remember what it was.
In researching for the worst year to be alive, things weren't always so bleak. In fact, the research started by our friends at Harvard ended on a positive note. While the events of 536 were the spark for some truly literal dark days in our planet's history, the researchers were also able to find the moments things really started to turn around. When researching coinage, they noticed the reappearance of lead in the ice core samples, indicating that people were producing silver again for money. Ah, capitalism, the life force of us all. Experts argued the prevalence of silver meant more coins were being produced, which was a sign of a thriving economy. The lesson being, as bad as it may seem, it will almost always get better. Almost always. So what do you think? Would you like to go into a time?
I'll go ahead and stop there. Well, I'll leave it. We'll leave it on the ice. Why not? Well, actually, I'm just gonna go back here. Hang on. We'll go back here. We'll go back to me. Screw that. Yeah. So this is as far as we know, the worst year in history. Obviously, Volcano just said, I'm going to screw up everything and just ruin the world. A lot of famine, a lot of disease came from that with, no sun being able to grow the crops or whatever. So, I'm trying to think. I don't know if anyone has really argued. Obviously, like, people have argued other stuff, but I don't know if there is like another great answer. Obviously, like, it can depend on, if you want to, like, maybe a world war, maybe, but then again, there was, wars, like, not, I want to say every year, which is kind of correct. In a sense, it's kind of correct history-wise, but, like, you could say, you could say World War, but you could just say, okay, well, back then there was only humans in Europe, Asia, Africa, or whatever, and they're fighting over there too. So when that's where civilization is. So I don't like, again, it's hard to I'm trying to really think of what else you could, again, like maybe Black Plague, or bubonic plague. Maybe it was the bubonic plague. I don't remember. I'm gonna do a video on it. We're gonna do that. Obviously, that's one of the most famous plagues. Well, is it it's the same name? I don't. I'm blanking right now. It has been a long day. It has been a really long day. I don't know why I'm recording this today, but it's been a long day. So my mind is fried right now. But we'll do a video on that. Which again, that's, you can maybe, but that's over a span that it's not. I don't think it was just 1 year thing. So yeah, it's really interesting that again, a volcano just changed the course of history and basically gave part of the northern hemisphere a mini ice age. Imagine that. Going back in time, reversing course and getting an ice age. But yeah, I don't have much else to say. I guess let me know your thoughts on this. There's obviously other videos that are like an hour long or whatever, which I didn't want to watch an hour long video. Not tonight. Again, if I want to do something like that, I'll do something on the weekend and record that on the weekend and split that up into two. There'll be more. I will definitely be doing more. I got to figure out a schedule for this. I'm trying to get back into this. I'm really trying to get back into this and actually like really grind out videos and content and whatnot, and get back to streaming too. So it's going to happen. That's why I said, just kind of hold on till, 2025. I'm going to, use these last 2 months here to figure out exactly what I want to do, specific days for whatever. And then again, probably, weekend streams. And if I don't stream on weekends, I'm probably recording a longer video if I can. So we'll figure it out. But again, that was probably what is arguably, well, I mean, I guess it's going to be argued, but it's what scientists think is the worst year in human history. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Peace.